Hello, colleagues. Thank you very much. I'm very happy that the thirst for knowledge overcame your thirst for beer. My name is Sergey. I work in the company Digital Solutions, but before that, for 15 years, I was a developer and implementer, so I know firsthand what all of this is about. So today we'll talk about the load balancing. I will tell you what it is and why we need it. Initially, the way it started, the load balancing for scaling of infrastructure, scaling of the services and their capabilities. And then risk increases of risk, services quality, and we need balancing for this as well as for cybersec. And the third aspect, which is not apparent from the title, is to ensure the fail-safe state of the network. So 20% of customers who come to us happen when a device, even if it's doing its job well, needs to be balanced for the moment when it is switched over to the backup. So I'll tell you how it is done in Russia right now. Open source solutions are used very avidly. Okay. Nginx, A-proxy, there's nuances related to that. Of course, this is all for free, but if you're not Yandex and not Sber, plus minus 3 more companies, then it is very hard to keep this all up in a workable state, in compatibility with your hard, and it not be as comfortable as you thought before. Productivity, InfoSec, it all depends on the developers, right? So we've had cases with add-ons on some actions that were not very friendly to the Russian Federation. It doesn't all comply with the regulators. The second case is to continue use the foreign packs. Those who have them understand what I'm talking about. But you have to think about what's going to happen, because there is guaranteed technical support, maintenance. All of this is not possible. They're here today. They may not be here tomorrow. And again, at least formally, this is all for the future. If we talk about the balancer of load, all packs, foreign packs, really balance it not to the full. Okay, they have anti-DDoS, web as functions in that balancer. All right, so all these functions may be needed and maybe not needed by the client. So if everything is included, doesn't mean everything is valuable. A colleague of mine told me that he was switched to another department. He was sent to a seminar, and he was told for a week of how to configure all this machine. Okay, so when he came back to the office, he went into the interface, and he saw that the balancing has been done on TCP ports. How did he discover that? So when you start using all functions of the program, you have a lot of problems with the synchronization of custom apps, for instance. If you change something in the app, you have to change the same thing in the balancer. The more settings you have, the more opportunities to make a mistake. And when you need to run this quickly, usually what people do, they simplify. The same WAFs, okay, the foreign WAFs won't know what DNS is, they won't be taking care of its security. The foreign packs, in terms of productivity, they all built on X8 processor. So the more functions we use, the lower the productivity. And the real productivity, predictability, and focusing is much lower. So when we choose a vendor and a product, we need to understand which functions we're going to use and how much time we will need for processing all of that. And usually we will overpay for some functions which we don't use and the productivity which we don't use, or we risk to face the situation when the function that we want to use eats up more productivity than the device has. And SSL offloading is a different story. I will address it a little bit later on, but this is something that you have to pay for often enough when you buy the balancing pack. A personal story, personal anecdote. Some 5 years ago, when I was a developer, I developed a wonderful protocol that took into account the load from different sources, right? And I was debugging it later on. And then I went up to the top floor to tell the seniors about how it works, and they told me, simplify. Okay, simplify. We need stability, and we need it to work quickly. And after this, of course, it started working with more reliability, faster, and it actually works up to this day. The lesson here is that the more complicated, the more complex we make the infrastructure, the more configuration kind of maintenance we bring into it, and the more chances are that sooner or later it will stop functioning. All right. Remember the Occam's razor: do not multiply substances without reason. The easier it is configured, the fewer redundancy there is in the system, the easier it will be in maintenance, and the more reliable it will be. What does it have to do with us? So we did a hardware balancer of a load balancer, and we are actively implementing it right now. How did it all start? From 2003, we've been developing the hardware solutions and hardware itself. In 2020, we released the okay, so we released the network packages broker, and then we started receiving a lot of different questions and requests. How can we balance the load? Starting from this moment, we went into tracks. We started to clusterize NGFW on the basis of the network brokers packages, and we started to create the hardware balancer that we've just finished are implementing. So now, how are we doing this? Well, actually, indeed, we do have the hardware load balancer, and the processes do not participate in the traffic. Everything that is done has to do with the traffic. We do on the FPGA basis. And apart from the productivity, which doesn't depend on the number of functions that we utilize, it gives us the reliability. There is no core, there are no drivers. So FPGA are configured transistors and the memory. Right, so this is actually the hardware level. How does it differ from the broker of network packages? The load balancer is also a router. Okay, so it has all the routing functions, and then it has a shared mechanisms of traffic allocation and control of the system. Our approach towards import substitution that we're using is quite realistic. We understand that we won't be able to develop something that the Western market has, and it will not bring money on the Russian market. So we go into technological partners. We do what we can do well. We understand that nobody will design hardware balancer better than us. As for the other devices, WAF, and so on, there are colleagues in Russia who do that. We understand that they will develop, they will do it better and better, year in, year out, and we together we will be able to resolve the issues of the customers. So we're doing testing together, we write instructions together, and we help our partners and our customers and clients to implement that. There is a number of vendors with whom we will already cooperate. There are some with whom we plan this cooperation for the nearest future. Specifics of WAF balancing is the subject which is very close to a balancer's heart. If we look at this history of foreign vendors development, WAF decisions or WAF solutions were among the first ones which they started to bring into the balancer. Why? Because usually WAF, WAF actually protects the resources on which you need to balance, kind of which the balancing is basing. This connection with WAF allows us to come as close to L7 balancing as possible. So we control everything. We control the condition of all the devices that we have in the network. And as far as the level of protection, we give this all to WAF. They take care of the content switching and SSL offloading. For the time being, we cannot substitute the foreign solutions, but we don't really know whether we should do that. We do lack some functions, but look better at your functions. Maybe you don't use all of them. So if you look at this scheme, how does this work? So the balancer balances on the fourth level entry on encrypted and non-encrypted traffic. So during the same session, the same session goes to the same sample of what the WAF. The WAF opens up the LVS and everything that has to do about separate specific resources is channeled into IP addresses or ports. And on the outcome, with the help of the balancer, we can reallocate that to different groups of services. If different clusters are responsible for different groups of service, then we use the filters, the ports, and IP addresses, and therefore we can reallocate everything that we need.
So whether we really need SSL offloading with the load balancing, that's the second most frequent question about SSL offloading. We started having it in the infrastructure, so on the internet, the amount of the encrypted traffic started growing. It started to take up server resources, so they decided to put this at a separate balancer device with the ASIC microchip, which provides the decryption of offloading. The world of CPUs is quite conservative. It does not change that rapidly. Yet Intel, starting from the fourth generation, added another quad QAT block, which enhances the cryptographic operations. So it's a part of the Intel processes. If we start buying Xeon, starting from generation 4, we already paid some money for this SSL offloader, and whether we're going to use it further on and whether we're not, we know that it's going to either be utilized or it's going to not be utilized. And it accelerates SSL traffic operations by 5-6 times. If we use the state-of-the-art servers, we can go back to the fully fledged distributed SSL offloading, so we get it as close to the processing point. This offloading, decryption, the attack is in the middle, and the later we do that, and the closer we are decrypting SSL, the safer it is. So SSL offloading is not the thing that we're going to embark on, because we think that in the near future, as the servers will move to the more contemporary solutions, it will become very rudimentary. We read the Western vendors' forums. They claim that very soon the virtual machines will do the same as the ASIC-based equipment with the use of the quad technology in the CPU. The next aspect here is NGFW balancing. As you can see, everyone knows about NGFW over the recent years. It's the only type of protection, and that's the most important one, is on the perimeter and between the segments. Taking a look at how the Western solutions with the NGFW operate, they use their ASIC, they use FPGA, which is quite close to ASIC, and the third thing is the use of the x86 blade servers, so that would be horizontal scaling with the distribution of the load. In the Russian market, we consider this is the most prospective approach to high performance NGFW for the Russian market. The load balancing of NGFW is symmetry. These are the stateful solutions. So it's important that the sessions and at the same NGFW device, because otherwise they would consider it an attack, a non-legitimate traffic, and it would be blocked. So we said already that we have been load balancing with the NGFW, with the package broker. We have seen quite a lot of problems. We decided to leave that, and we are living on a path of simplification of the logic. So we thought that the balancers would use standard protocols mostly, and we have the division of the cluster, the division of the infrastructure into separate parts. We have them separately between the loader and the outer scheme, and separately we have it between the loader and the cluster, and we have a separate one between the loader and further infrastructure, which increases the number of logical links, but significantly simplifies each and every link, because when we take this assistance, the complexity really increases exponentially. If we take a system out of 5 components, it's going to be much more difficult in tuning than 4 separate systems made up of one single component. So here is the cluster balancing. If we can cluster it logically at the address level, for NGFW, we're talking about clusterization on physical ports for security reasons, so that there will be no issues in settings, allow the traffic bypass NGFW. Where else does balancing work? We know that we have more cases right here in the beginning that are somehow related to cybersecurity solutions. The proxy servers are L4 balanced, and they are balanced quite well by L4, and the round robins and fewer sessions, they are not required. We have approximately 1% of that is balanced by hashes, and it's done by hash, and it does work. So on the one hand, we balance this, and on the outer end, they go to the infrastructure without balancing as such. Here are some TLS gateways and PIMs. They are no different than the WAF solution. It's the two-way balancing. It depends on the threat model. So maybe there would be separate devices here and inside the contour. And here we have 4 of them on the slide, but physically it can be just one cluster that uses WRFs and it provides balancing of the reverse traffic. Then we do the clustering. We balance a mail server cluster rather. Currently, we test it when the database is separately, and separately we have the mail inquiries. Sometimes the server is combined with the database, so we'll think what it's like. I think we'll come up with some solutions on how to process all that. So the WKS and the ordinary servers balancing, that's the case when we don't have WAF. It can be balanced, it can be separated, it can be divided into groups. We control the performance up to level 7, also including level 4 and 3. Apart from that, we can distribute the load on different number of servers. We can see the main site, we can see the backup site, see whether it's half of them that are still alive, we balance on it. If there are more of them going down, we just do different balancing. So here, that's what the customers want. They want one type of solution to divide and balance, and then they understand that with the same balancer, would be able to embed it into the scheme of the network, and then it can be used just like one cluster. For different services and different devices. So what I suggest we're going to do. So for example, we have a load balancer in the network, and you think what you're going to do with that, you'd better figure it out, whether it's an open source solution and how much do you think it costs to maintain this open source solution, and what's going to happen if it suddenly goes down. And so 4-in-1 are going to put up with it, please evaluate the possible risks. Please check whether you really need these units of equipment and whether it's possible to distribute this hardware. For example, we have the F5 followed by the Russian WFs. Do you really need the WF on F5? Maybe you just replace the F5 for a balancer and the Russian WAF. If everything fits, and it's solvable, please come and join us. We're going to give you a pilot for run. If you don't have this hardware right now, but you think you're going to need to use it, please come over. We'll try and test it together. Set the task. We'll set the task and go through. Even if you don't need a replacement, and if you know that we won't be able to do some solutions, please come over. The earlier you explain the task that you would like to tackle, the higher the chances that we will resolve it in a couple of years, because we grow the fleet of our equipment and work with the partners. So we do everything just to tackle the requests of our Russian customers, because it depends on them whether it's going to be warm in our homes, whether we have our banks functioning properly, etc., etc. Here is this Telegram chat where we publish all the news, where we also evaluate my presentation, and also if you would like to scan my contacts, please contact me. If in the future you have some questions, please use my contacts. I'll talk to you later. Thank you, Sergey. And we have a question on the floor, of course, and here is a book for you. I would like to discuss it with you. I've seen the TCP balancing, TCP load for balancer. Previously, they had the WAN optimizers from Cisco, from Riverbed, from Citrix. So the data center is 4,000 kilometers away and is connected by optic fiber. We need one TCP session sent quickly on 100 gigabit optic fiber. Can you use your balancer solution to accelerate the TCP, which is not working properly? The traffic generated has 100 gigabits, but there's an obstacle on the way. So does your balancer help here in this situation, this configuration? In actual fact, we are considering whether this function is in high demand, whether there are enough customers who need this. Actually, there are plenty of customers who told us about that. They locate their data centers, the backups data centers, 400 kilometers away from Moscow. They don't have too many data centers in Moscow. For example, you need to send a backup copy there, and we need a reserve channel there, the backup channel. 100 gigabit connectivity, 100 gigabit is a long channel with big latency, fat long channel. That's called. The TCP is pretty slow there. The backups copy this in one flow, and it works quite slowly because the data transfer rate with such topology is very slow, because there is a need of taking the spare data centers away from Moscow. So how do we optimize the data transfer rates there? I'm going to think about that. And as far as traffic mirroring is concerned, and you spoke about the packet brokers at the previous conference. We spoke about that with you. Yes, so deduplication, it all works. Definitely. And we also have this splashes protection, which exceeds the foreign analogs. We have the FPGA approach. This FPGA approach gives a few advantages if we talk about mirroring. They are much more suitable for mirroring.
В процессе презентации показывали и говорили о том, что можно работать непосредственно с НГФВ.
As you were making this presentation, you mentioned the
можно ли встроить сам НГФВ непосредственно на
So if we could implement that into the hardware and software complex. All the Russian NGFW, they have an ARM processor to process the packets. All the packets are processed with the FPGA, and you cannot run Linux on it. The architecture of a processor, the architecture of a chip is completely different, so you can't run
Разработки с
Linux
вендорами этих
OS on it.
решений имеются?
Have you thought about developing some solutions together with vendors? We integrate with code of security and positive technologies. We checked that with the code of security, UserGate, INDEC, Infotex, Solar. That this is the list of the names, and we try and go through that with the load balancer. So we've already
То
tested
есть в
with the
дальнейшем можно будет
security
поставить.
code and positive technologies. So we can already install it. Yes, you can already install it. We we had one installation of that solution with the brokers in
Jumbo Frame
2023.
поддерживается 9.
Does
А,
Jumbo
то
Frame
есть на
have
аппаратном
a support
уровне.
there? Yes, it does. So the support of Jumbo Frame is on the hardware level. Yes, it is.
Спасибо большое за доклад.
Thank you very
Я
much.
заранее прошу прощения, мои знания по сетям крайне скудны, но вопрос...
Well, I'm not too good about networking, but it seems like that your solution is the hardware and software complex. Some infrastructure in the Russian Federation is kept in the cloud. Will you have the solutions that are oriented at them? Well, the virtualization and virtual solutions are not the ones that we are planning on doing. We have a hardware solution.
Скажите, пожалуйста,
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
балансировщика L7 есть ли
Is your
возможность работать,
balancer
изменять, удалять
capable of
хедеры, там,
changing
баги,
and removing
вообще типы запросов и респонсов?
putty and headers
Зарезать респонс,
of
там, хедер
spawns
какой-то в
of
респонсе.
responses. So, for example, if you cut the header of the response, we balance this on L4, and these functions, these functionalities will be tackled by those colleagues of ours that do the WAF. That will be L7 based. I suggest that we exchange our contacts, so our colleagues, the
Чтобы зарезать или...
Сергей прав,
WF
это
developers
функционал
do that.
WAF. А вот между WAF
Sergey is right, that's the WF functionality, and they will balance that nicely with WFs. And we rebalance that if some of those WFs go down.
Так, вот,
Thank you.
так, еще один вопрос.
One more question.
Да, я тут. Смотри,
here.
в проектах какую максимальный трафик вы прокачивали через
What's the
свои
maximum traffic throughput of your clusters? 800 gigabits throughput capacity.
Загружали мы их, наверное, пока что
We
на 400, потому что это все, что обеспечивает наше...
reached 400 so far because that's what our test bench provides. We haven't found a faster
Если оно так
option, but if this FPGA solution works, it will work. The limitation is 200 megapps. So in terms of performance,
в размере пакета мы упираемся
I don't know about the size of the
но это
packet,
пересчетом можно получить.
but you can do the numbers and
ну, любая точка дополнительная в
get
маршруте
the answer.
задержки, какие они
An
у вас?
additional point on the route is latency. What about the latency? The latency is microseconds just
От
because
чего
of
это
the
зависит? Там,
FPGA configuration. What does it depend on? It doesn't depend on anything.
Так, скорее там от измерительного оборудования и
It depends on
того, как
the
мы это смотрим, измеряем.
testing equipment and how we measure that. We have fixed pipeline, so the jitter is
а где
minimal.
железо берете?
Сами
Where do you take the hardware? We have developed our hardware and we assemble it. We take FPGAs abroad. All of the logic is FPGA based. All the connections of capacitors and
заказываем на завод
Circuit board
именно текстолит.
printing is
Вот этот
our design.
российские заводы
The
сейчас перегружены, но технологически молодцы.
circuit board is manufactured in Russia. We use Russian technology. We do the assembly of the circuit board on our own, and we test and verify it.
Производство в Москве, можно приехать
And
посмотреть.
the
У нас
production
есть
facility is
свой
in
собственный
Moscow. You
завод,
can
поэтому
come over
делается это
and check it
совсем
out.
легко.
We have our own
Находится
factory
авиамоторная. И в
at
целом можно встретиться,
Aviamotorne
поговорить,
metro
обсудить,
station.
и
So you may come
посмотреть.
over and
И что по поводу
talk to us
балансировки промышленного
and
трафика?
check the production line. What about balancing of the industrial traffic?
Честно говоря,
Honestly speaking, I
скоростей, которые обычно
know that considering the
я никогда не думал, что
industrial
потребуется
level data transfer rate, I didn't know that there would be a balancer required. They don't need a balancer at
Коллеги,
the
если
data transfer rate.
вот еще вопрос, давайте.
Thank you.
Слушайте, больше всего вопросов.
Oh, Sergey, it seems like that you're getting a lot of questions.
А вообще продуктов у вас несколько решений или пока только
Do you have
одна
a few
железка?
solutions? So you
Возможно
have
ли
just
в
one
зависимости
hardware
от
product.
потребностей сети
So
выбирать
is it possible to
балансировщик
select
с меньшими
a
характеристиками,
load
чтобы
balancer
сэкономить,
with
или
the
же только да?
балансировщик у нас одно решение.
А
with
планируется
different
какие-то
characteristics?
меньшие
Do
версии или
you
еще больше?
just one solution we have? Are you going to have a lower performance versions? No, but the higher performance version will appear in a year or maybe in 18 months.
Вопросы
Thank you.
исчерпались.
Well, finally, we've run out of questions.
Давайте поаплодируем. Сережа,
Right now,
спасибо тебе
let's
большое.
give Sergey a round of applause. Thank you very much, Sergey. Thank you. And you need to present this book to the author of the best questions. So this it goes to you.